Welcome to the Jampack Report today for October the 9th of 2019. Of course, my name is Samuel Adams, and this show, the Jampack Report, is hosted 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, to keep you up to date and informed on everything happening in the gaming industry. If you enjoy the show and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button on youtube.com/SamuelAdamsMedia or find it on a podcast feed of your choosing and get the show every single weekday. But yesterday, we talked about the fact that PS4 was removing the Facebook sharing feature. That was one of the biggest news stories of the entire show. Then, roughly 10 minutes after I had uploaded that show, we got news about the PlayStation 5 and Doom Eternal got delayed. You might say your boy was a little disappointed, but that's okay because that just makes for a better show today, doesn't it? What a disappointment. Anyways, PlayStation 5 is getting a holiday 2020 release. We will talk more about that. Again, Doom Eternal pushed back to 2020. We will know more about Bluepoint's next big game. A Sony patent has shown off the future of PSVR. So much to break down in today's show that we might as well go ahead and dive into it. PlayStation 5 gets a holiday 2020 release. Sony unveils more hardware details. PS5 officially coming in Q4 of next year. This is a big deal because although we knew a lot of this information, none of it had been confirmed directly. Now we have a definitive timeline as to what to expect. Now, the entirety of the information that we are going to be discussing came from a Wired article that was uploaded yesterday. It was an exclusive for Wired, but it's very lengthy. IGN is hitting the highlights, so we are going to go with that one for the sake of time. Sony has announced the PlayStation 5 will be released during holiday 2020 in a blog post on the PlayStation blog. The console is, as you might have expected, officially called the PlayStation 5. The blog also reveals that the console's controller will feature two key new innovations: haptic feedback, replacing the traditional rumble, and adaptive triggers. It will also feature USB-C charging, a higher capacity battery, and is a little heavier than its predecessor, but still lighter than the Xbox One controller with batteries inside. Wired got more detail from system architect Mark Cerny. Haptic feedback will come through highly programmable voice coil actuators located in the left and right grips of the controller, which offer more tactile responses than the DualShock 4's rumble motors currently can. Along with an improved speaker, Wired reports that a modified version of Astrobot Rescue Mission offers realistic feelings for the surfaces the player character runs across, with soggy mud and bouncy wooden bridges being communicated through the feeling of a controller. Wired also played a version of GT Sport that used haptic feedback, a major change from the PS4 version of the game, which removed rumble altogether because it was too tiring. Adaptive triggers can be programmed by developers for other different levels of resistance, with higher tension for the likes of pulling a bowstring rather than a machine gun. Cerny also clarified to Wired that the previously reported ray tracing tech in PS5 is not on a software level, but is built into the GPU hardware. PS5 will use 100GB optical disc and an optical drive that also plays 4K Blu-rays. Game installation from discs is mandatory because of the difference in speed between the console's solid-state drive and the disc drive. However, installations will now be more customizable, with Cerny saying players should choose just to install a multiplayer mode or allowing you to delete a campaign portion once you have finished it to free up space for other games. The console's home screen will apparently also allow more flexibility for how players enter games. Players will seemingly be able to boot up a game straight into a multiplayer activity or a specific single-player mission, even being told what rewards they will get in-game for doing so. Wired also confirms the PS5 dev kit looks similar to the design that was reported on in August, but Sony won't talk about what the consumer version will look like. Dev kits often look wildly different to the release versions of a console. Marco Thrush of Bluepoint Games explains the console is getting back to the instant loading of old cartridge games and reconfirms that his studio is working on a, quote, big new game after the studio's remake of Shadow of the Colossus. Of course, there are still existing questions about the console's UI, what the controller will include, or how big the SSD in fact will be. But regardless, very excited to see what the next gen is going to be bringing. So again, as I said, this is all just a confirmation of pretty much things that had already been known or speculated on, because we already knew it was going to be the PlayStation 5. We already knew that a holiday 2020 release was pretty much going to be the plan from the get-go, considering the fact that Project Scarlet, Xbox's competitor, was going to be planning for a holiday 2020 release as well. But the most exciting bit of news for me is the fact that we do have a bit more detail as to what the next DualShock 5 is going to be including, because you do have this haptic feedback, which sounds very cool considering how it's used, but even more so, the tension that can be applied to an analog stick sounds like that is going to create a much more in-depth and hands-on gaming experience, no pun intended, for the likes of The Last of Us, which is inevitably going to be coming to the next generation. To have an update to even The Last of Us Remastered, and then, of course, to bake it into an update in The Last of Us Part 2, where a bow does have that feedback, that tension on the analog stick. That is what makes next gen defined from the previous generation. That sounds like a really, really cool new feature. But regardless, PlayStation 5 getting a holiday 2020 release, so you better start saving your pennies now, because that thing is going to be coming up relatively quickly alongside the next Xbox. However, Doom Eternal has been delayed to March. Doom Eternal has been delayed to March 20th of 2020. The news comes via a Twitter post from id Software saying the game needs more time in order to, quote, live up to our standards of speed and polish. The message also notes that a few other changes are related to Doom Eternal's release. Invasion Mode, which allows players to enter each other's games as a demon, will come separately as a free update shortly after launch. In addition, the Nintendo Switch port of the game is coming sometime after the other platforms, exact date to be announced. Finally, Doom 64 is coming to all platforms, not just Switch. It's also a pre-order bonus for Doom Eternal. With the move to March, Doom Eternal will be releasing around the same time as some extremely anticipated games, just 2 weeks after the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Watch Dogs Legion, and on the same day as Animal Crossing New Horizons. I want to make a comment really quickly. I'm not sure if Kotaku is being legitimate with that last paragraph there, but do you really think that somebody that's buying Doom Eternal is going to say, well, dang, it looks like I have to choose between Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons? These aren't the same people. These are vastly different people. Regardless, then you have 2 weeks after Final Fantasy VII Remake. I could see some crossover there. Watch Dogs Legion, I don't think anybody's going to buy that. Regardless, anyways, Doom Eternal delayed to March 20th of 2020. As I always say, with any delay, a good game that takes more time is always better than a bad game that's out now. And so this is always fine. Whenever a company needs to delay a game, it's always going to be the right choice. So if you were looking forward to Doom Eternal, there's still plenty to play this holiday season, and on top of that, there are so many awesome games coming out in the spring of 2020 to look up and forward to that you can just add this one to the list. And of course, the way that I see Doom Eternal and Doom itself is that it's never going to be bad. It's always going to be Doom. You always know what to expect from it. So whether you play this one in fall of 2019, spring of 2020, summer of 2020, in 2030 even, Doom is always going to be fantastic and a phenomenal experience. Although this one, I'm a bit hesitant on because it does have the hub world, which I'm not sure how that will work out. This invasion mechanic, I don't know if I want that. There's a lot in here that I'm hesitant about, but I do trust id Software when it comes down to it. So we will see how this one all shakes out whenever it releases on March 20th of 2020. But you might have noticed a little tidbit there. Doom 64 officially announced for the PS4, the Xbox One, and the PC. A port of 1997's Doom 64 has been announced for modern consoles. Doom 64, this is a direct quote, will be available on Xbox One, PS4, and PC in addition to the Nintendo Switch, says a tweet from Doom's official Twitter page. We are adding Doom 64 as a pre-order bonus for Doom Eternal on all platforms, so you will be able to download and play the classic game for free just for pre-ordering Doom Eternal. Doom 64 will be released on March 20th of 2020 on all platforms. The port of Doom 64 was announced during September's Nintendo Direct with a November 22nd release date. The game was developed by Midway Games and it came out in 1997 on the Nintendo 64. The port joins Doom, Doom 2, and Doom 3, which were all released on the Nintendo Switch back in July. In addition to Doom 64's new release date, Bethesda announced the Switch version of Doom Eternal will launch after the other platforms. While it is a shame it is getting delayed, it will be well worth the wait when it releases. And so, Doom 64 coming to all consoles. Of course, the hypothesis had been this was going to be a Switch exclusive, and I think that maybe it was at one point. Because if I'm reading into this correctly, if it was to be coming out on November the 22nd, I believe is what the original release date was, then that is roughly a few months before March 20th of 2020. Maybe this was going to be a 3 to 4 month exclusive on the Nintendo Switch, and then it was going to come to the next consoles. I'm not sure sure how all of that worked out, but apparently it's going to be coming out to all locations at one time, which is fine for me, because Doom 64 is going to be a fantastic one to have on the console, at least for historical purposes, if nothing else. However, that's pretty much all of the info for Doom Eternal. Again, both games, Doom 64 and Doom Eternal, coming out on March 20th of 2020. Now, let's return back to PlayStation for a minute. Bluepoint Games working on a big game for PS5. Demon's Souls, is that you? They ask at Push Square. This has to be the Demon's Souls remake, right? Buried near the bottom of Wired's latest unveiling of Sony's PlayStation 5, Bluepoint Games is quoted saying that it has a big game planned for the console. The masters of the remake have become synonymous with putting out quality re-releases of past classics, and it looks like we'll be getting one more on next-gen PS5. In an interview with Wired, Bluepoint Games president Marco Thrush said, "We are working on a big one right now. I'll let you figure out the rest." Rumors of a Demon's Souls remake have been circling for a couple of years now, and what we have heard in the past is true, or if what we have heard in the past is true, then it looks like we will get that incredible experience all over again on the PlayStation 5. It by no means is confirmed, but this just has to be Demon's Souls. I'm not sure if it is or not. There are so many classic games that could be up for a remake that I don't know if you can potentially count on Bluepoint to be working specifically on Demon's Souls. Of course, whenever you compare it to the likes of Shadow of the Colossus, that is a very enormous game. I also believe Bluepoint did the Uncharted collection, which was a phenomenal experience as well. So whenever you are thinking about what could be coming out on next gen, Demon's Souls certainly up there. Many people want a Demon's Souls remake, but on top of that, I would love to see the older Metal Gear games brought up to a newer generation. I feel like that's something that could also be, petitioned for. But again, nothing confirmed, just a big game coming for the PlayStation 5 from Bluepoint Games, which again, make a phenomenal remake. If I have played their games, they make some good ones, I must say. However, you could be playing one of their games on PlayStation VR, and it looks like a new Sony patent is pointing to a next-gen PlayStation VR. Sony's patent for a new PSVR headset depicts several new features which may turn up in a next-gen version of the device. The filing, dug up by Let's Go Digital, the same site which unearthed Sony's patent for the PS5 dev kit, originates from February 2019 but has only been made public this week. Images show plans for a PSVR headset which includes 2 front and 1 rear cameras. A further camera is included on the PlayStation Move style controller. These headset cameras are in addition to the LEDs installed around the current unit. A microphone will again be included, and there's also the option for a further separate camera to track the user's movements, like the PlayStation camera or a Kinect. Most excitingly, perhaps, is the mention of the headset that could be operated wirelessly with data sent and received by Bluetooth. This would mean the unit also includes its own power supply. One final point is the ability for the headset to show a transparent view made possible by those front-facing cameras, so you could use your surroundings through the screen. Images from both of these cameras can be displayed at the same time, one per eye, producing a stereoscopic 3D effect. Alternatively, they could be used to overlay AR effects on your real-world surroundings. Sony has pledged that all current PSVR headsets will work with PS5, but it still makes sense that PlayStation, as you might know, will also update its aging virtual reality tech with a more advanced model. Whether this headset will simply offer more precise movement tracking and wire-free play, or if certain VR games will demand a newer model, that is for Sony to decide. In other news, PS5 will be called the PlayStation 5, arriving Christmas 2020. I don't believe this is going to be a launch hardware piece. I think this is going to be coming after the release of the PlayStation 5, potentially even up to a year or two afterwards, because you still want to show value in the existing PSVR unit. And of course, the existing PSVR does well as an entry-level VR experience, but at the end of the day, as the article does say, they are going to have to update their PlayStation VR if they want to maintain the appearance as a legitimate competitor to stuff like the Oculus Rift and other various companies that are beginning to really get in to the world of VR. Now, I would love to see a completely wireless headset. I just don't know if Bluetooth has enough bandwidth for that kind of an experience. That one sounds a little bit sketchy to me, but regardless, I'm not a tech guy. I'm not an engineer, so this could very well work out. But without a doubt, exciting to see the new patents revealed for a brand new PSVR headset, and to be able to look through cameras and actually pick up your drink and drink it instead of having to remove the headset sounds pretty good to me. It's the small things in life. The small things in life indeed. However, the architect behind the Atari VCS has just quit. Let's go ahead and dive into the next big console for the next generation. The company says all is well. Atari's long-delayed retro console may be in trouble because, according to the Register, its lead architect has left the project. Rob Wyatt, who was also a founding Xbox team member, told the publication that he officially resigned as the architect of the Atari VCS on October the 4th. He said Atari has not paid his design consultancy, 10 Giant, which had been behind the console's development for the past 6 months. The crowd-funded retro console was supposed to be released last June, but the company pushed its release back to March 2020 due to a series of delays and revisions. Quote, "I was hoping to see the project through to the end and that it wouldn't come to this, but I have a little choice other than to pursue other opportunities," Wyatt said in a statement. Despite the departure of the project's lead architect and his firm, Atari has confirmed and seems confident that it can launch the device. In a statement to Gamasutra, it said, quote, "It is Atari's policy not to comment on an isolated matter under dispute, only to say that the Atari VCS project has always been a team effort and its success has never been and will never be dependent on any single individual or partner. We remain confident in the Atari VCS as the entire team works diligently to bring forth its vision according to plan, and we will continue to communicate accordingly over the coming weeks and months, including hands-on presentations to key media and partners planned for later this fall." Atari has also published a Medium post to update fans about the VCS, along with photos of the device's custom thermal solution, PCB board, and case. In it, the company confirmed that it would operate more like a computer than a fully functional game system, like what the Register said in its piece. The publication compared it to a Steam machine since it wouldn't run its own distinct operating system. That said, it also assured its crowdfunding backers that the hardware they'll be getting is 100% finished. It's just that the software isn't running and will be an early access version. The company said it will ask its backers, who are supposed to receive their consoles earlier than everybody else, for feedback before the device's retail launch next year. I like this little last piece because essentially it said, hey, if you backed us and you gave us your money really early on, years and years ago, you get the beta version of the entire kit, so we can actually make a legitimate console for the later releases. That's beside the point. This seems like yet another little page in the shit show book, because this is never going to work out. The Atari VCS is not something that should have ever seen the light of day. In a world where miniature consoles are bringing value to the retro market, Atari should have thrown themselves into that, and instead of making this, which is itself a retro console, which is itself also a competitor to the current gen consoles, and on top of that apparently a PC, you could have just made something and pumped it out for $60 to $80 and made bundles of cash. I don't understand the mindset behind this, because it's never going to be the legitimate competitor that they wanted to be. I'm sorry, I'm just saying. I would love to be surprised. I know that there are many people that watch the show that are excited about the Atari VCS, and as I always say, I hope that it works out for you, and I hope that it is everything you want it to be. But I do not have faith in the little project that could. But you know what I do have faith in? Call of Duty Mobile, because man, I'm enjoying that game, and it is the best first week downloads of any mobile game, Victor. It has surpassed the likes of very large competitors. Call of Duty Mobile has been seen. Let's start over. Call of Duty Mobile has seen the best first week launch by downloads of any mobile game ever, with an estimate... What? Okay, let's start over for the third time. Winding it up. Call of Duty Mobile has seen the best first week launch by downloads of any mobile game ever, with an estimated over 100 million downloads and around $17.7 million in player spending. This comes from Sensor Tower, which notes that it surpassed the recent record holder Mario Kart Tour, which brought in 90 million downloads in its first week. For additional comparison, PUBG Mobile's first week saw 28 million downloads, while Fortnite's App Store only launch brought in 22.5 million. It's worth noting that PUBG Mobile was made through a partnership with Tencent and PUBG Corp, while Tencent also holds a minority stake in Epic Games. Though a champion in downloads and still surpassing Mario Kart Tour, which brought in 12.7 million in its first week, games such as Fire Emblem Heroes, 28.2 million, have had a better first week revenue total. Fortnite didn't even come close in its first week with $2.3 million. COD Mobile saw 56% of its downloads on iOS and 44% on Android. It was most popular in the US with almost 17.3 million downloads, followed by India and Brazil. By revenue, $9.1 million came from the App Store, with $8.3 million coming from Google Play. And so we have a winner on our hands, and I've been talking about Call of Duty Mobile more because, quite frankly, this is the best mobile experience I have ever had when it comes to games that I am playing. I trend to not be a mobile player. I just simply have never really been somebody that plays on the go. But considering that I have had some downtime from time to time at work, if I'm on a break or something like that, then I will sit there and I will play a couple of rounds of Call of Duty. I've even gotten into the BR side of this, and it is not limited by its microtransactions. It is not a parsed back version of Call of Duty. This is a Call of Duty game. And it does what it does phenomenally. And so to see it get 100 million downloads is not shocking because of the power of the name Call of Duty. But on top of that, it's just a legitimately good game. And it does deserve every bit of the success that it has. Now, I know some people take issue with Tencent, and that's on your own time. That's on you. But I will be the first to say I'm a big fan of Call of Duty Mobile, and I cannot wait to see the future of this with maybe content updates, new maps added. That all sounds like a very, very cool idea to implement in the future. But you know what? A guy broke into Valve. Oh no. A guy broke into Valve and stole over $40,000 worth of equipment and games. Last month, 32-year-old Jean Chaputis broke into Valve and ripped off over $40,000 worth of equipment and games. He was even caught on camera selling some of the stolen games at GameStop. Bold. Charges were filed against Chaputis last month and at the time, according to news station KIRO7, he already had 6 active warrants. This is the same fellow who back in July stole a FedEx truck and led police on a high-speed chase from Bellevue, Washington to Seattle. Chaputis is scheduled to be arraigned on Wednesday. Should he fail to appear, another warrant will be reissued. So, I just wanted to make it very clear that maybe Valve should up their security just a bit over there at the HQ and maybe not allow somebody to wheel out $40,000 worth of merch and games. But that's beside the point. To round out today's show, a Simpsons Hit and Run remake. Oh boy, this could be good. Woohoo! They say, because it's a reference to the show. If you're talking to a bunch of people in their mid-20s who have only a very vague passing interest in video games, it's never too long before The Simpsons Hit and Run is brought up. The PS2 classic has stood the test of time thanks to becoming a childhood memory for many, and while a full remake is probably never going to happen, the game's original producer certainly seems on board with the idea. Speaking to Lad Bible, Vlad Seraldi said, quote, "I could see it on multiple different types of platforms as a remake or remaster. It would have to take the parties who are in charge of the property to want that to happen, and someone out there to decide that they were going to go out and do it. But absolutely, it would be fun to explore those characters and that universe again. That'd work again. It's going to take rather a lot of work to get this project up and running because, as the interview states, the prospect is discussed usually at the pub, but it's nice to know the game's original producer would be back and working on a remake if the chance ever arose. So would you like a remake of The Simpsons Hit and Run? I'm on the fence about this one. Okay, now this is coming from somebody who played this game endlessly as a child. I don't know that every game needs to have a remake, because The Simpsons Hit and Run still holds up to this day. I see speedruns of it just about every time there's a Summer Games Done Quick or any other kind of Games Done Quick event. It is still fun to watch, still fun to play, and of course, a remake would do very well at retail because, again, tons of nostalgia around this specific title. But on top of that, I just don't know that we need it. However, it's nice to know that they are thinking about the potential in the future. If somebody happened to want to make it happen, that it very well could. But regardless, nothing to confirm as of right now. But I just wanted you to think about The Simpsons Hit and Run today, because every day is better when you think about The Simpsons Hit and Run. However, that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed this one, drop me a like down below. And if you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on the podcast feed, follow the show. Stay up to date and informed 5 days a week. And until tomorrow, have a phenomenal rest of your day, and peace.